You are perhaps the first Filipino American I've seen in media who espouses conservative values. Incredible. From what I can tell, almost all my Filipino friends are on the side of the left, and a lot of my family is liberal too, save a few who are probably neutral or shallowly conservative. The first step is, I think, is inspiring. Inspiring other Filipino Americans to be the best versions of ourselves, and again, be victors, not victims, right? And to be fully American and fully Filipino. Alright, what's up? So I'm coming here with another video, and we're talking about the best comment AF and Filipino values. Let's get into it. But first up, of course, if you're new to my channel, what is up? My name is Mitch, Maverick Mitch, Hey Mitch, all the Mitches, and pretty much I like talking about what I talk about. So, current events, reviews, and pop culture within the scope of entertainment, culture, and purpose. So, TV, movie reviews, social political commentary. Be sure to check out all those videos as you're finishing this video. So getting straight into it, I am talking about one of the best comments I have, and the person that actually wrote this, their account is called AF, so appropriately I'm calling this the best comment AF. And so we're also tying into Filipino values with this because it kind of plays into my views and my background on conservatism and Catholicism as well. And so this kind of like prefaces the whole thing, and it also kind of serves as almost like a pseudo kind of channel update because I am on the road to 1,000, and so I am kind of like on the halfway there as far within this 6 months. So in the next 3 months, the goal is to hit 1,000. So again, we'll go into the comments, talk some more, and go into it. Alright, so again, this is coming from a person account calling themselves as AF, and while this is a compliment, I think this comment just serves as why am I doing my YouTube for what I'm doing. So again, going straight into it, this person writes, "You are perhaps the first Filipino American I've seen in media who espouses conservative values. Incredible. From what I can tell, almost all my Filipino friends are on the side of the left, and a lot of my family is liberal too, save a few who are probably neutral or shallowly conservative. Plus, almost all the Filipinos I've seen in media are on the left, even though I think the conservative movement in America ought to remain focused on the bigger picture, more macro scale topics affecting our country. For example, the collapse of the nuclear family, illegal immigration, etc. Instead of focusing on solely acquiring minority votes. I absolutely love that you're addressing topics specifically relevant to Filipino Americans, especially because of our Christian and Filipino roots. One would really expect our communities to remain steadfast in our traditions and values, but the American left has really hijacked our identity and turned us into victims and useful idiots. Hashtag stop Asian hate." That's just me. He didn't say that. We'll go into that. But if you understand that lingo, and for their own political gain, I really hope to see more of Filipino brothers and sisters to return to traditional Filipino American values and Catholic Christianity. Proud to be your 800th subscriber. Yeah! So, and then he continues, "If I may ask a few questions, how did you come to conservatism, to Catholicism? What are your favorite places to draw inspiration, information from? What do you think I can do as a Filipino to bring other Filipinos onto our side, as an American in general, to bring other Americans into conservatism? Even if you don't reply to this comment or answer these questions, I wish you a good night." Hey! That's so great. So, again, first, awesome, really thank you to AF for writing that, and I'll just go into my comment, right? And so, best comment AF, LOL. Well, I appreciate the support. In short, you have pointed out why I'm doing this channel. In addition to myself finding this type of medium fun, YouTube, I'm highly fortunate. This comment serves that there is a demand for it. I'm glad to be a Phil-Am red pill supplier, sort of speak. I'll kind of like backtrack that a little bit. I'm not saying that there is a full-on demand. Obviously, I'm just playing light with words, right? I'm not saying that there's a full demand. Obviously, people are searching for it. I don't know if there's so much of a need for it, but people are looking for it, right? And as soon as this movement is building, maybe there will be a demand, and I'm just playing on the supply and demand and supplier red pill. So I'm putting that as a lighthearted because, you know, my channel would be so much higher if there was a true demand for it. Not to say that there aren't people looking for it, there are just not enough people looking for it at the moment. So yeah. First, I want to give highlight to one of my other subscribers. I'm not going to mention who they are, but they gave me a phone call. They messaged me first saying like, hey, can I give you a call? And saying like, hey, I love what you're doing and I'm glad that you're the one doing this. And so I'm bringing that up because this is not the first person who has kind of like made this type of comment. And again, I appreciate it, and I'm obviously that I'm willing to talk about it, not only because, like I said, that there is someone that needs to talk about it. I find this thing fun. I like talking about this, and I have the skills in which, from graphic design and in making videos, that I can actually do some good within this realm, right? And so yeah, I mean, obviously it gives me some encouragement, really, on top of the negative comments that I do receive. It gives me encouragement to continue what I'm doing, and there are people recognizing that this is something that, you know, there's no one doing this. And if there is anyone that needs to do this and be in the forefront of doing this, I'm glad to do it. So, well, yeah. So breaking this down, I do want to kind of go into the comment a little bit and then go talk about like answering the question. So the first thing that stood out to me was like, you're the first Filipino American I've seen in media. And that kind of is weird to me because I never consider myself in media, but I suppose I am. Like, if, for those who don't know, I do a podcast with Josie Harrison, who is Joel Coy's mom, and it's on PHLV Radio, and we do an open forum discussion every Monday night, 6 p.m. Pacific time. And then again, you just go on Facebook, search PHLV Radio, and we range topics from just like cultural topics as well as politics. And so I mean, I'm on that as well as me being on YouTube. So even though I may not consider myself on media, I very much am, I guess. And so I just don't consider myself as. So secondly, I do want to go into what he was mentioning about the American left has really hijacked our identity and turned us into victims and useful idiots. And I inserted hashtag Stop the Asian Hate, in which I said that, he didn't say that. And so I think that's a great example because now they are using this emotion-driven hashtag to rile up Asian Americans as victims and using this narrative and agenda on the left. And not to say that I don't agree, I already have a video about this, not to say that I don't disagree with Stop the Asian Hate, but I think it's being weaponized like Black Lives Matter and all this stuff. And so again, it's this perpetuating this emotional outrage and race baiting that I disagree with. And like, if we want to protect the vulnerable, amen. If we want to adhere and propagate the Second Amendment and people defending some, amen, right? And so like, there's portions in which I shouldn't do another video on this, but point being, I agree with what his sentiment is, that the American left has hijacked our identity, use identity politics as a victimhood. Like, do I identify as Filipino? Of course I do, right? But I'm not going to use that as a, like, that's all I am. I'm not going to use that as a victimhood. Like, I'm gonna use the best portions of Filipino, knowing that there are quote-unquote bad Filipino characteristics, recognizing that and seeing those weaknesses and overcoming it, and then being the best Filipino American and conservative that I can be. So yeah. For the rest of the video, I'll talk about the questions he asked, because I did say that I was gonna put this on a video and everything, and so to answer his questions, and it kind of goes into long-winded, but it's kind of good because if you're new to my channel, I've talked about this in other videos, but hey, why not talk about it again? So and I'll probably do a different spin on this, but more or less it's all the same, right? So the first question is, how did I come to conservatism as well as Catholicism? I think those are kind of a little hand in hand, at least in my perspective. So let's go with the I was never political. Like all of my life until 2018, I was never political, right? And it's, again, going back into this victimhood, this outrage bait that got me into it. Like, in 2018, things were getting crazy, like in media and social media and all this outrage bait. BuzzFeed was doing this, now this was putting out videos, and I was questioning the narrative as far as why is there so much clickbait? Why is there so much outrage bait? And it made me go into a deep dive on YouTube, figuring out what do I view politically as well as what I do view as religiously, theologically. So going back and rewinding it, I will say that I was very privileged to grow up in a two-parent household, right? I grew up in a very Republican home, I grew up in a very Catholic home. And again, this is both of my parents. Both of my parents are like, well, more so my dad, I guess, but both of my parents are political, both of my parents are religious, more religious than political, right? And so I always been a cradle Catholic. You would imagine I would imagine that I would have rebelled more, but I just stuck into these ways. And so it's funny because yes, I growing up, I thought it was very cringe that I seeing my dad watch Rush Limbaugh and Fox News and Bill O'Reilly, and I thought all of that was cringe. And my dad listening to Catholic radio, I thought all of that was cringe. And if I were to say that I was anywhere politics-wise, I would say I was moderate. But I just kept these conservative values. Also, if you follow Jordan Peterson, he says like people who have whose personalities are conscientious type tend to lean conservative. So again, if you're for people who do our Air Force, for Air Force personnel, they know like the 4 lenses, the 4 colors. I'm a gold, so structure. Next one would be green, so logic behind that. And then if you know about the DISC model, so D-I-S-C, I am a C, so conscientious type, as well as a D. That's my secondary character, which is dominance. So conscientious, so analytical, logic, and then ambition with dominance and everything. And so, as well as Myers-Briggs, I am kind of a cross between ENTJ and ESTJ. So I'm a very strong controlling person as well. So that's why I need my YouTube as an outlet for level of control that I have in my life. And so point being is that not only my environment was, my personality type is conducive, very a disposition for conservatism. And so that's not the case for everyone. I'm just particular in my own way. Mind you, that I also graduated with an Asian American Studies degree, so very liberal degree, right? That I'm not really using other than for this channel. But you know, obviously I went to the Air Force, and obviously I got my associates in information technology. But it's just funny that I had these backgrounds in my life. So that kind of pairs how did I dive into conservatism? It's always in me. So yeah. Also, real quick, I'll pair up the Catholicism portion. Obviously, I'm a cradle Catholic, but you know, other than my peers, I still was a very practicing, very cultural Catholic. You know, like just without my parents asking, you know, I would go to church even when I started driving in high school and well into college. I went to church on the regular, practiced the holy days of obligation, and like during Lent and all these other practices and prayers, right? It was just 2018 that, again, politically as well as religiously, I just dive into it. And thank you, the Holy Spirit, for manifesting in my life. And that wasn't a fad. Like, I have gone to the point where I've been to not only researching the origins of the Catholic Church and all of this theology, I have an affinity for apologetics. And I think it's super fun. I also talk really fast when I'm really excited. And so, I just know, as a side note, if you haven't noticed. But, like, it's really cool just because, like, I even dived into learning Latin for my Latin prayers. I even went to Latin Mass. And so, like, hello Catholic there. And so, yeah, I just find it very intriguing because there's the spiritual warfare aspect of it too. And so, if you follow like Jordan Peterson, he kind of goes into a biblical series in which, like, if you're taking like biblical stories of like Cain and Abel, like Cain is like the worst attributes of man, like the resentment, and that also trails down into even Marxism, in which there's a resentment towards the proletariat and the bourgeoisie type thing. And so it is, it's all there, and it's all biblical, and it's all psychological. And so I just find Christianity, Catholicism as the most truest form of Christianity. And so, yeah. So the next question is, what are some of your favorite places to draw inspiration and information from? And so, yeah, I mean, I do TV movie reviews, and I like watching things that have like sci-fi as well, but I like watching things that has a dystopian twist on things, just because I like how things are like what ifs, and it just builds my mind. And then I like to draw parallels from those dystopians, and as far as like how it builds into our real world. And so that's one aspect why I like talking about what I like talking about, because it draws from like a movie TV perspective, like let's say, I don't know, The Man in High Castle or Battlestar Galactica. Like, I can just draw inspirations from there and bring it into whatever I'm talking about. And I also like talking about pop culture, so I like doing these references and everything. And so that's kind of like what I like as a medium and inspiration wise. But if you're asking like information wise, I think it's all the YouTube stuff. So Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, Tim Pool, Lauren Chen, Slightly Offensive, Fleckus Talks, John Doyle, like even the newer people like Vince Dow and everything. So I draw inspiration and information from a lot of sources, and I think that is a great way to diversify not only your knowledge base, but just listening to other people in their conversation. And again, not just going into the conscientious type, but this is why a lot of people search the information on YouTube, right? And so when you are red pilling yourself, a lot of people go into this rabbit hole of looking up information, right? And so I am no different, you know? And so if you follow my channel, you kind of get an idea who I listen to, like even in the pop culture sense, talking about the quartering, talking about Geeks and Gamers, Drunk 3PO, Neurotic, you know, all of that area. And then as well as I talk about like Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, Lauren Chen, and all of like Lazy TV and Dave Rubin and all this stuff. And so you kind of get an idea of the cross betweens on all my thought processes, and I don't even know if that's a word. And so you kind of just get an idea of that. So yeah. So last question is, what do you think I can do as a Filipino to bring other Filipinos on our side, / as an American in general, to bring other Americans to conservatism? So I might have to dive into this and think about it even more. Like I said, there's a level in which there's conversations, and it's kind of hard because, you know, those conversations, especially on social media and all these other platforms, are being silenced by big tech, right? Parler, Facebook, Instagram, and all this stuff. But I think there is still that need to start engaging, and not just on Facebook groups, but like again in person, and hopefully you can find people who are somewhat like-minded. I know it's hard, right? But one thing that we can do is propagate and activate all the social media and people who are talking about it online. So I'm gonna throw in like the Axit Movement, the Asian Exit Movement, for people who are leaving the Democratic Party, for Asian Americans. That kind of fits into if I were to do a Filipino exit. I've been thinking about doing that here in Vegas, but there's portions, again, following Lauren Chen and Vince Dow and the Korean conservative and the Korean Christian conservative on YouTube as well. So looking at these other YouTubers, and I think just building a conversation and building these communities together, I think it would be beneficial. As an ending note, I think this is what I want to do with my channel. Not only do I want to do like on the street things and podcasts as well, but I think what I recently picked up through these Filipino organizations here in Vegas is this idea of inspire, activate, and mobilize. And it sounds very like what the left is doing, but we have to incorporate, we have to use their tactics, but with a conservative spin, right? So I want to inspire people through purpose, through purposely driven conservative values, like not just victimhood, right? They want to inspire people saying like, look at all the injustice happening to Asian Americans and to Filipino Americans. Rather, I want to say like, look at our values and look how we can overcome. Like already Asian Americans do better in the household income, so we have to embrace our values, and whether that is developing our artistic entertainment side, an entrepreneur side, medical, military, engineering, like we can be the best versions of ourselves and not be victims, like I said. And in doing so, that will activate a portion of us, right? To the point where mobilizing people into politics, into these conservative groups that are advocating for whatever policies that need to be activated, right? And so the first step is, I think, is inspiring other Filipino Americans to be the best versions of ourselves, and again, be victors, not victims, right? And to be fully American and fully Filipino, right? And so, and that is not separate, right? Because there's a lot of Americanism for the left. They say that's like colonialism and colonial mentality and internal racism. They may view it as that, but these values are, I wouldn't say superior, but they are tested, right? These values of hardworking, these values of free speech, these classical liberal values, right, as well. And so there's just an idea in which I need to formulate this even more, but again, building the best version of ourselves as Filipino Americans. And so if I'm doing that on my channel, let's do it. And then if I can inspire other people to do it, let's do it. With that said, awesome. Thank you for watching. You can follow me on my Instagram at HeyMitchMitch. You can follow me on my joint Instagram at It's Mandatory Fun, where I do other videos for my friend Jen. I'm also on Parler, Maverick Mitch, and see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Please share, like, and subscribe, and peace, peace, peace be with you. Eke mo spero to tuo.